Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and this is not my usual time for dropping a plugin, and this is not a plugin video. The reason I'm making this video, and it's also likely not going to be one of those Chris from Airwindows plays something on a plugin and smirks with delight because we're talking about YouTube. So it's going to be the visage of dismay and pain video today. This video is about why I have paid close to $150 for YouTube Premium. I did a previous video that was about why I enabled ads on my channel, even though I make effort not to watch ads myself. And I consider that a disability accommodation, not the putting ads on, that the opposite, but I have autism, and my job is thinking of stuff to be able to give people because of my Patreon and all. And if people have free access to throw ideas and make me think certain things with all of the skill they possess, then they can derail me and make me think whatever they want, which might not serve my interests. This is why I use technological means to not watch advertisements and have always avoided network TV. Like, I was born in 1968. I grew up when there was just broadcast TV. I still didn't want to watch it. I read books because there was always the show you things to make you believe what they want to believe. My mom grew up an enormous fan of a particular video series that came out when she was younger, and I've actually got it on DVD, and it was called Victory at Sea. And it used newsreel footage, and Richard Rodgers wrote amazing orchestral music, and that's an advertisement. It's an advertisement for American military supremacy. And at the time, they even made some pretty good points about who they were fighting, but it was still advertising, and it was still making people believe certain things. So I'm in general in favor of managing the information that you take in when there are people out there trying to make you believe things that you might not want to believe. Arguably, you can even make that be across the board. It's a complicated question. But the reason that I turned on ads on my YouTube channel is because I'm working on YouTube's turf. By that, I mean that's what they sell, and I'm like in their club. I am playing at their club, and if I refuse to do what they want in order to, if you were playing at a club and all of your songs were about not drinking beer, you might not get asked back. That's because the club might be making most of their money through selling beer rather than selling tickets to go and see you perform. Now, this leads up to why I went for YouTube Premium. And you'll be able to see that in there are a number of things that are offered. Those aren't really my reason, and some of them were fake. For instance, you're offered to be able to download videos. I consider that to be somewhat false advertising. You're downloading data, but it's encrypted. You don't get to actually have it. So if you want to archive video information off of the internet to be able to have, for if everything goes screwy, it's not going to be available to you for that. So I wouldn't call that downloading. That's not what I call downloading. I do think there's a tiny nudge to video and even maybe audio quality for everything that I'm watching running on. So obviously for me, that's fine. I'm the dither guy. So all the little subtle improvements that you can have are awesome as far as I'm concerned. And I feel that is particularly noticeable. I could be mistaken. I might just be imagining this. But my sense of audio is that they threw a couple of bits into the audio compression stream while they had them, because it's supposed to be giving you more bandwidth for what you pay for. And that's actually a really easy and effective way for YouTube to like mildly bump things in such a way that you'd notice if it wasn't there. Throwing a little bit into a compressed audio stream actually helps quite a lot, because it fills in all of the subtle details that are convincing and realistic that you barely notice when they're not there. And then if they are there, all of a sudden everything feels a little bit realer. And this also helps with visual quality, because if you up your audio quality, then the visual information coming across gets a boost as well. It's a little sort of synesthetic thing going on, where if you can make a visual of a big space, that's all well and good. Then if you can do a reverb on there, it's more convincing. And if the reverb actually has soundstage depth and is like a properly made reverb, then it's even more convincing. I think you get a little bit of that, although I could be mistaken, and it could stop at any time. Like, I have no control over whether YouTube is slightly upping their streaming standards, as they've sometimes promised to do, or whether that's just fake and maybe they do and then they just stop at one point and don't give you anything special. But it's a really cheap way for them to do a slightly premium product while charging a little less than $150 for it. Notice I'm saying $150 because that's another thing. They will say $14 a month. Used to be something like $12. I'm calling it $150 because I paid by year, because they let me. I have no intention of paying the poor person tax that they are applying by trying to pay month by month. If you can get something like that, and they let you do things like, oh, if you pay the entire year, then you can have 10% off, always do that. That's poor person tax. If you're in a position to be able to do stuff like that, it'll add up. And that's just part of how stuff stratifies. And so I will be calling it a little less than $150 once you include tax. And I'm still doing it. I'll pay that once a year, because the final thing about jumping on YouTube Premium is what it implies. You might remember a time when stuff got a little fishy on YouTube. It didn't really align with the kinds of things I like and care about. I mean, as an open source left-wing programmer guy giving tools to people, the means of production, quite literally, you might understand that I'm not in favor of alt-right dudes or fake alt-right dudes. I have a big bone to pick with Tim Pool, but then I've sometimes mentioned that. Not a fan. I'll leave that alone for the moment and mention that there was a time around, 2015, 2016, where, boy, there was a lot of that stuff being pushed around on YouTube. And mysteriously, nobody was being asked to pay money for their YouTube. It's like it magically happened just out of nowhere. Well, these kinds of magics aren't real. Somebody was paying for it. And much like with Facebook, I think we'll find, if we ever get a look back historically, and that depends upon whether digital records persist, because one of the problems about digitization is that we're running on this very streaming-based world, and everything can kind of evaporate. History stops existing when it's not written down in a way that persists. And everything that can be taken away through, subscription services and all that stuff can just go poof. And that might be what happens to the story of what went on in media. And I think YouTube and Google owning it is going to tend to own media going forward. I think media was taking a lot of money from people with stuff to sell. And those people kind of got what they wanted in terms of, well, there was a whole president elected who was a surprise to many people, but there was sure a lot of media out there very interested in what was going on and very interested in putting forth an agenda. So YouTube was getting paid. It wasn't getting paid by me. It was getting paid by somebody else who didn't necessarily have my interests as the open source lefty programmer and all at heart. And if they are now trying to get paid by me to the point where they're fighting my technological methods for not watching advertisements, if that's that big of a deal, gosh, it looks like there's not as much money in that anymore. Because I think if they were still being paid great amounts of money for doing that, they'd still be doing it. So it's kind of on me and people like me now. It's going from oligarchs with agendas to trying to get paid by an actual market, trying to get paid by people out there, all with their own opinions and ideas, and all with their roughly $150 a year. Again, I'm not going to call it the 14. It might not stay that anyway, but if you're smart, you can pay in lump sums as long as they will let you, and you'll pay less. But, if that's what they're trying to target, it suggests some good things as far as the money not being in the other thing anymore. There is a guy that I enjoy, a fellow named Bo of the Fifth Column, had a twist on a saying that people say, and he suggested, go fash, no cash. That might have happened to YouTube. It's not about morals, because these companies, these giant entities, don't have morals. They operate like sort of giant slime molds made out of human beings, and they do not follow rules, but they can tell where food is. And if not as much of the food is in a particular place and they're casting around trying to find where better food is, maybe that's a good sign. It also suggests that if I want to be able to influence media, because everybody who knows anything about YouTube knows it's all about the algorithm. Well, I'm interested in the stuff that I watch. I mentioned Bo, but I was just watching a guy interviewing Cameron, Venus Theory, and enjoying what he had to say. Well, just so happens I'm watching that with a YouTube Premium account. My watch counts for more. And that alone is not a terrible reason to want to jump for that kind of thing. Because, even if I was not paying for the privilege of doing this thing, kind of like if I had cable but I was able to upload my own shows, somebody would be paying for it. And their say would be what went. With pivoting to I guess this is one of my bills now. This is a thing that I use. And I'd also like to have outside influence on what goes in this platform. This is a way to do it. A lot of the people who don't like me or the things that I care about and appreciate have known this for a long time and spend a bunch of money. They spend a bunch of money with Google and with YouTube trying to show me advertisements. And everybody's seen that kind of stuff. You get swamped, you get buried in that sort of thing. I intentionally take means to not watch that stuff because I don't feel like being propagandized by those people whose opinions I have inspected and do not choose to be swayed by. I have decided against some of these people's ideologies. And as such, I don't want them in my face. Well, this is a different way of doing it, which is paying YouTube and here's an experiment that I'm going to try. I'm keeping my technological means for not watching advertisements because there's all the rest of the internet, and I'm not even going to disable it on the YouTube platform. What I'm doing is I'm paying them and then not changing anything else. And I'm really curious as to whether I'm going to get any kind of hassle to which I'll be able to say, hey, this is a disability accommodation for me. I have to be able to work. I have to be able to think. I have the capacity as an autistic person to be caught up by memes and things, echo and reverberate the information that's coming in. So I got to be a little bit more selective as to what I consume. And the people that are paying you are not helping me. So it's a disability accommodation, but hey, I'm paying fair and square to not consume that stuff under the terms that you have dictated. So, problem? And we'll see how that goes. I'm going to watch and see what happens. I'm going to see whether there's any benefit to my channel, which I'm not really changing anything much else. I'm doing a little more live streaming these days, including today. But I'm not really changing anything much else. And I'll see whether there's any uptick to be had for my ability to reach people now that I am a premium YouTube subscriber. I dare say the reason that I did the initial video about why I enabled ads is similar in that I just have to wonder whether all the big YouTubers are simply pulling every possible lever to make themselves look good to YouTube. Like, you got a Mr. Beast or whatever. Is he a YouTube premium subscriber, or has he decided as a moral stance not to be one? Well, he's so singular that they pay special attention to him. But anybody on the up, anybody who is growing and succeeding in that platform, is there any benefit to doing every little single thing to make it seem as if you are a true believer to their algorithm? Because you have to look at it in terms of there's not going to be a person there studying you, thinking about what you do. There's probably going to be algorithms. There'll be algorithms to see whether there's like blinking lights, whether your background changes on a regular basis, whether your camera is in focus. You can probably check that stuff out with an algorithm. There's going to be an algorithm to see, oh, are they paying for our premium subscription service as a creator? There's going to be an algorithm on how often do you upload? Do you upload and go live on a regular basis or not? Interpret these things. And it doesn't get into the human realm, if ever, until you're a huge, huge deal. So it's a matter of trying to manipulate the algorithms. And like I said, I think it is possible that the algorithm used to be tuned to some stuff that is worrying or indeed extremely distressing. And if I'm reading this correctly, they are going after the actual marketplace of video consumers and people who are watching this media because their more nefarious stuff stopped working. And that's actually a good thing. So on that note, I'll talk to you later. Maybe I'll see you on my live streams. And I hope you like the plugins I normally make. Bye-bye.